Welcome to another Dark Rider Pony analysis. I am the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, reminding you as always that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed to its original source. If there's one thing that seems to be the most striking thing about the MLP Season 4, it's just how divisive it is. Almost every single episode seems to have the fandom split on the quality of each episode in question, with so far 3 of the 6 being predominantly positive. While you do have people who genuinely skew most reviews post-Season 2 to the negative, like Biter, even Digibrony and Tommy Oliver seem to be conflicted on a fair few of these episodes when they are predominantly positive reviewers. While I know Digibrony has said he doesn't want to see people arguing about the objective merit in an episode, rather how their analysis comes from a personal perspective, being the Major Mind makes me a person who tries to base his opinion on as many facts as possible. For those unfamiliar with Homestuck, the title essentially means I have a deep understanding of the aspect of mind which is about logic, thoughts and factual information. It defines me as much as it is something that is for me to use. I accept that it is impossible to be completely objective in your opinion on everything, since we all have different value judgments as to what aspect of media is more or less important. But at the same time, we need to have some sort of criteria that makes an episode good or bad. As such, I have to say that I honestly didn't find Power Ponies to be all that spectacular, despite the first few analysis videos on the subject being more towards the positive. Still, I am a fair analyst, so I will always find something to like about an episode and highlight what worked about it. Power Ponies is an episode that sets up a great deal of potential to work on a conceptual level, but ends up completely failing in terms of execution. When it comes to the analytical reviews I do, one of the biggest sticking points to me in an episode is the rule of show don't tell. I have said previously how I write fiction as my primary hobby, which is the primary reason these analysis videos are so sporadic, but this is a rule that is especially true when it comes to visual media. It's not enough for the characters to just tell us what they feel, we need to actually see evidence to back this up. This episode starts out with Spike waking Twilight to tell her about a comic he is reading, Power Ponies. It seems he is taking lessons from Twilight and Rainbow Dash when it comes to the enthusiasm of their favourite type of media, something that I will bring up later. It is here where Spike explains his resentment towards a useless comic relief character in the story, Humdrum, with Twilight reassuring him he should get some sleep so that he can be useful in restoring the old castle we saw in Castle-Mania, which I will briefly say is a nice little continuity nod that I hope they follow up on. But here we are presented with the first problem. Spike is spending so much time telling us how useless Humdrum is that he is beating us over the head with what the episode's message is going to be. Not to mention how Twilight snubs Spike when he offers to help the main 6 in their restoration work. This leads Spike to identify with Humdrum as a useless comic relief character. This doesn't work because we are not given anything substantial to remotely suggest he should be feeling this way. So he was rejected from helping for no explained reason, and we barely have any real build-up to show that he would have this conflict. This is why I'm much more forgiving about Daring Don't than I am of Power Ponies. In Daring Don't, the pacing was well thought out enough that we could get time to establish the central conflict of Rainbow Dash. We already hear evidence from Readers and Week how much Daring Do is adored by Rainbow Dash, as a good chunk of the first act is dedicated solely to Rainbow Dash trying to contain her fangirl enthusiasm to help out her hero. I am not saying that the episode was completely flawless, but considering how much Rainbow Dash demonstrates this conflict, it gives the conflict weight when things start to go wrong. It may have been a cliche moment, but at least we could believe the dilemma given everything that we have seen in the episode so far. Here we are just being told that the conflict exists and nothing more. Once Spike reads a magical spell that sucks him and the main 6 into the comic, this is where the more positive aspects of the episode begin to show themselves. While the mysterious Mr. Enter felt that the powers of each of the individual members of the main 6, which reflect the traits they would normally have in their normal lives, made them boring and predictable, I actually quite like how they did this. Sure, it doesn't make them special, but I do actually feel that it fits with the more comical tone of the episode, which stopped it from being outright bad to me. Considering this is supposed to be a big homage / tribute to superhero comics rather than parodying any of them, as Mr. Enter suggests. Each of the powers work well to reference both well-known heroes and even some of the more obscure ones you don't tend to initially think of when you come to think superheroes. Pinkie Pie replicating the Flash made for some hilariously random lines, as well as many Looney Tunes inspired scenes where fighting the generic minions. Plus Rarity being created with the Green Lantern style powers really added to the heroic whimsical tone that these comics intended to embody. This brings me to my next criticism and a comparative topic I want to make: the popcorn episode. I felt that Castle-Mania was always intended to be a popcorn episode that focused more on the comedy of the Scooby-Doo style trap-laden castle as opposed to the serious character development or more important moral. Most certainly the episode had a moral, but it was kept simple and it wasn't much discussed throughout the episode. Because the moral was treated more like a footnote, with most of the plot coincidence being set up for the purposes of comedic timing, I honestly had a great laugh with the episode because, unlike Power Ponies, it wasn't shoving the moral down the throat, which allowed me to turn my brain off and simply enjoy the cartoon hijinks I remember loving as a kid. Hell, it was still nice seeing the characters play off on one another, as well as Angel Bunny being nice for a change. But sometimes it's okay to just have an episode that focuses on simple entertainment and gives us some relief from the more serious episodes. I don't think the show would work nearly as well if it was 100% serious all the time. The reason it doesn't work this way in Power Ponies, as I briefly mentioned before, is because the moral is constantly shoved down our throat and is intended to be the centerpiece of the episode. The entire point of the story is for Spike to learn that he is not useless to the main six. They keep repeating this notion ad nauseum, telling us over and over while putting very little of us into practice. It is hard to turn my brain off and enjoy the episode for its superhero action scenes when it's constantly bashing my head in with the lesson it's trying to teach, rather than let us learn the moral the character in question would earn naturally. Not only that, but the episode is poorly paced. It takes so long and puts so much effort into telling us Spike's dilemma, the main six end up learning their powers incredibly quickly, struggling to work with them properly in one scene, then having the main six use them perfectly in the next is not good pacing. I'm going to bring up Daring Don't again because it's a clear example of how the episode was much better. Yes, there are issues with the episode that I will be addressing in a review, but they are much less severe and noticeable than they are here. In Daring Don't, the pacing allows for the action sequence to be escalated properly and give us a reason why Rainbow Dash caused more problems than solutions at first. Within its 22-minute runtime, we are clearly given the context of the situations where Daring Do struggles to fights effectively by herself, then fighting effectively with the assistance of Rainbow Dash and the rest of the main six. All the while of the moral of don't put your heroes on such a high pedestal you forget your own talents is working effectively because this is exactly what we see Rainbow Dash doing. Once she clears her head and focuses on what she is personally good at, both her and Daring Do make a fantastic team together. Getting back to the more positive aspects, I agree with Camgo's pony on how Maniac ticks all the boxes for a perfect homage to comic book villain stereotype. She is shallow, one-dimensional in character, completely insane, has ridiculous powers brought on by an accident, and essentially embodies all which you'd expect from finding Gold and Silver Age comics. The fact that she has ridiculous weapons, generic minions, and is all pretty much flat villains is entirely the point. It is set up for Spike to use his wit and knowledge of the comic to find cracks in the villain's plan and free the rest of the main six. It pleases me quite a bit that he quickly exploits the weakness of the freeze spray, nice pun there too by the way, and disposes of the minions with the environment, since it reminds me a lot of the Spider-Man animated series that I used to watch as a kid. Then we get to the crowning moment that this episode really saves it from mediocrity: Flutter Hulk. Yes, it's contrived. It could have been used earlier. Yes, it was flanderizing Fluttershy to an extent, but damn was it ever hilarious to see Fluttershy Hulk out and go completely apeshit on the evil hairdryer cannon. This is why I can at least understand the perspective of those who see the episode as a really fun popcorn episode, much like what Castle-Mania did for me. But alas, this episode still doesn't quite fully redeem itself with this, as we have to end up with a hand-waving remark of Spike getting the comic from an enchanted library. I've ranted before about magic logic being used as contrived Deus Ex Machina with little setup, so I honestly won't dwell on the numerous ways this was a stupid decision. If you want to hear my full thoughts on the subject, go check out my Princess Twilight Sparkle review instead. Oh well, at least we have Pinkie Pie's cupcakes. So I think this is a good moment to sum up my final verdict for the episode. Overall, it could have been a fun adventure with a decent moral for Spike, which could have also made up for terrible Spike episodes that dodged character development like Spike at Your Service and Dragon Quest. But instead, we get a half-baked mess that drags down the entire superhero homage by shoving poorly developed morals down our throats. I do forgive it to some extent for having decent premise with poor execution, rather than terrible premise to begin with like some other episodes, as well as not making one single character being so powerful that completely ruins any team dynamic like other superhero shows have done. I'm looking at you, Kyoryuja. Just at the end of the day, the result of this is that it's just another mediocre Spike episode that does a great disservice to what a useful character he should be. Power Ponies gets an overall grade of a C-. Not terrible, but still pretty mediocre. So until next time, this is the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, riding out.